Think about the last person you fell hard for. Maybe it was someone who ran hot and cold, affectionate one week, distant the next. Maybe it was someone who never quite let you in, no matter how much you gave. Or maybe it was someone who wanted so much from you that it made you feel suffocated and you pulled away, even though part of you didn't really want to. Now here's the real question. Was that the first time that happened? Or does that story sound familiar? Because for most people, it's familiar, very familiar, and that's not a coincidence. That's not just bad luck, or a bad dating pool, or the wrong apps. There's something deeper going on. Something that started long before you ever downloaded Hinge or went on your first date. It started in childhood, and it's called your attachment style. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about psychology, self-awareness, and the inner workings of human relationships. The stuff that actually explains why we do what we do. Today's video is one I've been wanting to make for a long time, because this topic genuinely changed how I understood myself and the patterns I kept repeating. We're going deep on attachment theory, what it is, where it comes from, and the four main styles, and most importantly, how each style quietly shapes the partners we're drawn to, the relationships we create, and the cycles you might be stuck in without even realizing it. First, what is attachment theory? Attachment theory was developed by British psychologist John Bowlby in the 50s and 60s. Bowlby was studying how children bond with their primary caregivers, usually a parent, and what happens when that bond is threatened or broken. What he found was profound. Humans are wired from birth to seek closeness with a caregiver. That closeness isn't just emotional, it's biological. It kept us alive as a species. A baby that stays close to its mother is a baby that gets fed, protected, and kept safe. So our nervous systems evolved to be deeply, urgently attuned to whether the people we depend on are available to us. Later, psychologist Mary Ainsworth took Bowlby's work further and observed how toddlers reacted when their caregiver left the room and came back. What she found was that children fell into distinct categories based on their behavior categories that reflected the kind of care they'd been receiving. Those categories became what we now call attachment cycles. And here's the critical part. Those early experiences don't just live in your childhood memories. They're wired into your nervous system. They become your default settings for intimacy, trust, vulnerability, and closeness. Settings that follow you straight into adult relationships. Researcher Mary Main later extended the work to adults. And what decades of research has shown us is this. The way you attach to your caregivers as a child is one of the strongest predictors of how you'll show up in romantic relationships as an adult. So let's break down the four main styles. As I go through each one, I want you to listen not just intellectually, but personally. Ask yourself, does this sound like me? First, secure attachment. These folks grew up with caregivers who were consistent and responsive. Not perfect, no parent is, but generally available. When the child was scared, the caregiver showed up. When the child needed comfort, it came. When they explored the world and came back, someone was there. This creates a nervous system that learns. People are generally safe, connection is available, I am worthy of love, and others are capable of giving it. As adults, securely attached people tend to be comfortable with both closeness and independence. They can be vulnerable without feeling like it'll destroy them. They can handle conflict without it feeling like the end. They give their partner space without spiraling into anxiety. And when it comes to who they choose, they're drawn to people who are emotionally available, honest, and consistent. They don't confuse anxiety for attraction. They don't mistake unavailability for mystery. When something feels off, they trust that feeling and act on it, whether that means having a direct conversation or walking away. Secure people aren't drama-free, Life isn't, but their baseline is one of trust in themselves and in others. Around 50 to 60% of the population leans secure. If that's you, you likely take it for granted, but it's genuinely a gift. Anxious attachment, because this one is incredibly commonly underrecognized. Anxiously attached people grew up with caregivers who were inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes present, sometimes emotionally unavailable or preoccupied. The love was there, but it wasn't reliable. It came and went in ways that the child couldn't predict or control. So what does a child's nervous system do with that? It adapts. It learns to be hypervigilant, to constantly monitor the caregiver for signs of connection or withdrawal. To amplify emotional signals, cry louder, cling harder, make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle. That hypervigilance doesn't turn off in adulthood. It just redirects towards romantic partners. Anxiously attached adults are the ones who check their phone every 5 minutes waiting for a text back. They replay conversations looking for signs something went wrong. They feel that gut drop panic when a partner seems slightly distant. They need a lot of reassurance. And even when they get it, it doesn't always stick. They tend to be deeply empathetic, emotionally generous, and intensely loyal. But underneath all of that is a quiet, persistent fear. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm too much. I'm not enough. They're going to leave. And here's where the partner's choice gets really interesting. Anxiously attached people are often drawn almost magnetically to people who are emotionally unavailable. The avoidant partner who takes forever to text back, who keeps one foot out the door, who's hard to read. And on the surface, this seems masochistic. Why would someone who fears abandonment choose someone who triggers that fear constantly? Because it's familiar. The nervous system doesn't seek what feels good. It seeks what feels known. And the anxious person grew up with love that was inconsistent, so inconsistently feels like love. The moments of warmth from an unavailable partner feel like winning. They feel earned, they feel electric, and this is crucial. The anxious person believes that if they can be just good enough, loving enough, patient enough, the unavailable person will finally open up that narrative. It keeps them in dynamics that are objectively painful because they're always chasing the possibility of a breakthrough. Avoidant attachment comes from a different kind of childhood experience. These people grew up with caregivers who were emotionally distant, dismissive, or who discouraged emotional expression. Maybe they were told you're fine when they weren't. Maybe showing vulnerability was met with discomfort or punishment. Maybe the message was, handle it yourself, don't need too much. So the child adapts by shutting down the attachment system. They learn to self-soothe, to be independent, to not reach for connection. Because reaching didn't work. They become, on the surface, very self-sufficient. As adults, avoidantly attached people often take pride in their independence. They can seem confident, capable, and low maintenance. But underneath, they built walls they may not even know are there. Intimacy, real intimacy, the kind that requires vulnerability, triggers discomfort. When a partner gets too close, an internal alarm goes off. This is dangerous. Pull back. So they do. They get busy. They create distance. They convince themselves they just don't want something serious right now. When it comes to partner choice, avoidant people often unconsciously choose people who are either too needy, which gives them a reason to maintain distance, or people who are equally closed off, so neither person ever has to truly be vulnerable. The tragedy of avoidant attachment is that many avoidant people do want connection. They just don't know how to let it in. And they often don't realize that until someone they actually care about leaves. Fearful avoidant attachment. Fearful avoidant attachment, sometimes called disorganized, is the most complex of the four. It typically develops when a caregiver was also a source of fear through abuse, neglect, unpredictability, or significant trauma. The child is in an impossible bind. The person I need for safety is also the person who scares me. That creates a deeply fractured relationship with intimacy. As adults, fearful avoidant people want closeness, sometimes desperately, but they also fear it deeply. Getting close to someone means getting hurt, so they oscillate, pulling people in, then pushing them away, being intensely present, then disappearing. They're often drawn to chaotic or emotionally intense relationships because calm and stable doesn't feel like love. It feels unfamiliar, even boring, even suspicious. They may self-sabotage relationships that are actually good for them. Healing is absolutely possible, but it often requires the most work, ideally with a skilled therapist, because the wounds go deepest. Just avoidant trap. I have to give this its own segment because it's the most common, painful relationship dynamic, and it almost is never talked about for what it actually is. Anxious and avoidant people attract each other like magnets. When they get together, they create a push-pull cycle that can last years. Here's how it works. The anxious person feels the avoidant pulling back and becoming more activated, more needy, more clingy, more emotional. The avoidant person feels that increased pressure and pulls back further to regulate, which means the anxious person is even more panicked, which makes the avoidant person even more suffocated. Round and round. The cruel part is that the moments when the avoidant person does show up, when they're warm, when they're present, when they say the right thing, we feel absolutely euphoric to the anxious person because it's unpredictable, because it was scarce. The brain's reward system lights up the way it does with slot machines. Intermittent reinforcement is the most addictive schedule there is. So the anxious person stays convinced that the good moments are the real person, and the withdrawal is just a wall to break through. And the avoidant person, they often don't realize how much they value their relationship until the anxious person finally leaves. Then suddenly they feel free, which lasts about 2 weeks, before they reach out again, and the whole cycle restarts. Neither person is a villain here. Both are doing what their nervous systems were wired to do. But the pattern causes tremendous pain on both sides. So if these patterns are so painful, why do we repeat them? Because the nervous system is not looking for happiness. It's looking for homeostasis, for what's familiar. Familiarity feels like safety, even when it isn't. There's also something called repetition compulsion, a psychological tendency to recreate old dynamics, often unconsciously, hoping for a different outcome this time. Like the anxious person who grew up with an emotionally distant parent and keeps choosing emotionally distant partners, hoping that this one will finally stay, that this time their love will be enough. The pattern isn't random, it's deeply purposeful, even if it's unconscious. And recognizing that purpose, recognizing why a certain type of person feels magnetic to you, is the beginning of changing it. How to change your attachment style. Your attachment style is not permanent. It's not who you are. It's just a pattern your nervous system learned, and anything that was learned can be unlearned. Here are 5 ways to actually change it. Number 1, learn your pattern first. You cannot change something you cannot see. So the first step is just getting honest about how you show up. Do you chase people who pull away? Do you shut down when someone gets too close? Do you need constant reassurance to feel okay? Awareness creates a gap, and in that gap, you get to make a different choice. Number 2, work with a therapist. This is your most powerful thing you can do, especially modalities like EMDR, internal family systems, or attachment-focused therapy. A good therapist becomes what researchers call a secure base. Someone who is consistently there, and that experience alone of being met with patience and steadiness over time actually starts to rewire old patterns in your nervous system. Number 3, practice tolerating discomfort. If you are anxious, the discomfort is sitting still when you want to chase, not sending the 5th text letting someone come to you. If you are avoidant, the discomfort is staying present when everything in you says pull back, letting someone in even when it feels like too much. Growth lives right at the edge of what feels uncomfortable. So notice the urge and try doing something different. Number 4, choose relationships that feel safe, not just exciting. A lot of us have been conditioned to mistake anxiety for chemistry, that nervous electric feeling around someone unavailable. It feels like passion, but it is often just your nervous system in a familiar state of stress. Start paying attention to how someone makes you feel day to day, not just in the highs. Calm, consistent, and kind is not boring. That is actually what secure love feels like. Number 5, build a secure community around you. Romantic relationships are not the only place healing happens. Friendships, mentors, support groups, even this type of content can all give your nervous system evidence that safe connection exists. The more your system experiences being met with care and consistency, the more it starts to believe that is just how relationships work. And that belief changes everything. This is not a fast process, and it's not a straight line, but every time you choose differently, every time you stay when you want to run, or pause when you want to chase, you are building something new. You're building earned security, and it is very real. For now, protect your peace, trust what you see, and keep growing. Thanks so much for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more relationship tips.